Imagine discovering that your younger sister, the one you always protected, was responsible for destroying your life 20 years ago. Sarah Mitchell thought she knew all her family's secrets until the day she found a hidden box in her mother's attic. Inside it, letters, photos, and documents that revealed a betrayal so deep it would change everything forever. What she discovered about Rebecca, her beloved sister, was beyond any nightmare she could have imagined. But Sarah didn't know that the truth has a price, and sometimes justice comes when we least expect it. Sarah Mitchell had always been the responsible daughter. At 45 years old, she had worked as a nurse at a Chicago hospital for more than 2 decades. Her life had taken a completely different path from what she had dreamed of when she was young. At 22, she was about to marry David, her college boyfriend, and had been accepted into medical school. The future seemed bright, full of possibilities, but everything changed on a single summer night, 23 years ago. Sarah was accused of stealing medications from the hospital where she was interning. The evidence seemed irrefutable. Security cameras showed someone in her uniform entering the pharmacy, and the medications were found in her apartment. David left her immediately, saying he couldn't marry a criminal. Medical school canceled her enrollment. Her reputation was destroyed overnight. At the time, only one person stood by her side: Rebecca, her sister, 3 years younger. Rebecca consoled her, offered financial and emotional support, and swore she would always believe in her innocence. "I know who you are, Sarah. You would never do this," Rebecca said, with tears in her eyes. For years, Sarah tried to rebuild her life. She became a nurse, a more modest dream, but still in healthcare. She married at 35 to a gentleman named Michael. But the relationship was never the same as it would have been with David. The shadow of that scandal followed her everywhere. Meanwhile, Rebecca prospered. She became a successful lawyer, married David. Yes, the same David who had abandoned Sarah and built the life Sarah had always dreamed of having. But Sarah never felt jealous. After all, Rebecca was the only person who had stood by her side in her darkest moment. The 2 sisters' mother, Dorothy Mitchell, passed away last month at age 78. Sarah and Rebecca went to clean their childhood home in Evanston, preparing it for sale. It was a painful task, full of memories and reminiscences of a simpler time. Sarah was in the attic, organizing boxes of old photographs, when she found a shoebox hidden behind a pile of dusty books. The box was sealed with tape yellowed by time and had a handwritten label: "For Sarah, open only in case of emergency. Mom." With trembling hands, Sarah opened the box. Inside were letters, photographs, and documents that would make her world collapse once again. The first letter was from her mother herself, dated just 2 years ago. "My dear Sarah," it began, If you're reading this, it's because I didn't have the courage to tell the truth while I was alive. Forgive a cowardly mother, but I couldn't destroy our family. ... Again. Sarah continued reading with her heart racing. Her mother had discovered the truth about the hospital theft. She had found evidence hidden in Rebecca's room, a uniform identical to Sarah's, forged keys, and even a diary detailing the entire plan. Rebecca had orchestrated everything. The letters revealed that Rebecca had always been jealous of Sarah, jealous of her grades in school, of her relationship with David, of her acceptance into medical school. Rebecca couldn't stand living in the shadow of her perfect sister, so she created a meticulous plan to destroy Sarah's life and take her place. Rebecca had gotten a copy of Sarah's uniform, studied her schedules at the hospital, and planted the evidence in her sister's apartment. She had even used contacts to ensure the security cameras captured only a figure from behind, unrecognizable but wearing Sarah's uniform. The most devastating part of all was discovering that David was involved. He and Rebecca had been meeting secretly for months before the scandal. The plan was to get rid of Sarah so they could be together without guilt. Sarah felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. 23 years of her life had been based on a lie. The sister she loved, who had consoled and supported her, was actually the architect of her destruction. Sarah sat in the dusty attic for hours, rereading each document, each letter, each proof of Rebecca's betrayal. Tears streamed down her face, but they were untears of sadness. They were tears of a rage so deep she could barely breathe. Dorothy had discovered the truth 2 years before dying when Rebecca, in a moment of guilt during an argument. Their mother was devastated, but didn't have the courage to tell Sarah. Instead, she gathered all the evidence and kept it, waiting for the right moment that never came. Among the documents was Rebecca's original diary, where she detailed every step of the plan. Sarah read with horror her own sister's words. Sarah always thought she was better than me. Today, I'm going to show her who really rules this family. David already promised me he'll stay with me after everything's over. He never really loved Sarah. He just felt obligated to stay with her. There were also photographs of Rebecca and David together, weeks before the scandal, kissing passionately in a cafe far from home. The plan had been orchestrated with a coldness that Sarah never imagined her sister could have. Sarah came down from the attic with the box in her hands. Rebecca was in the kitchen, organizing their mother's belongings, humming a song as if she didn't have a care in the world. "Did you find anything interesting up there?" asked Rebecca with a smile, without looking up from the dishes she was packing. "I did," replied Sarah, placing the box on the kitchen table. Rebecca looked at the box, and her expression changed instantly. The blood drained from her face, and she dropped the plate she had in her hands. The sound of the porcelain breaking echoed through the silent kitchen. "Sarah, I can explain, began Rebecca, but her voice came out as a suffocated whisper. "Explain what, Rebecca? How you destroyed my life, how you how you lied to me for 23 years while I thanked you for standing by my side." Sarah's voice was calm, but there was a coldness in it that made Rebecca step back. Rebecca tried to deny it, tried to make up excuses, but the evidence was undeniable. Finally, she broke down in tears and confessed everything. "I was young, Sarah. I was jealous. You were always the perfect daughter, always had everything I wanted. I didn't know the consequences would be so lasting. Sarah laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "Rebecca, you destroyed my career, my marriage, my reputation. I lost 23 years of my life because of your envy. But you rebuilt your life. You have Michael. You have a career." Rebecca tried to defend herself. "A career that's a shadow of what I dreamed of. A marriage I built on the ashes of my destroyed trust." Sarah looked at her sister, this person she had loved unconditionally, and felt something die inside her. But along with the death of that love, something stronger was born. The determination that the truth would finally be known. "What are you going to do?" asked Rebecca, her voice trembling with fear. Sarah picked up the box and walked toward the door. "I'm going to do what you should have done 23 years ago," she said, without turning around. "I'm going to tell the truth." That night, Sarah called Michael and told him everything. He was shocked, but supported her completely. "Let's find a lawyer," he said. "It's late, but it's never too late for justice." Sarah also made other calls. 2 former medical school colleagues, to the hospital where she had been accused, to David, who answered the phone with a voice full of guilt, as if he knew this day would come. The truth has a funny way of coming to light, even after decades of being buried. And Sarah was ready to unearth it completely. The revelation of the truth was like an earthquake that shook the entire Evanston community. Sarah contacted a lawyer specializing in defamation and fraud cases, presenting all the evidence her mother had kept. Although the statute of limitations had passed for criminal proceedings, there was still time for civil actions. The scandal exploded in local newspapers. "Respected lawyer accused of ruining own sister's life," was the Chicago Tribune headline. Rebecca tried to deny everything publicly, but the evidence was overwhelming. The diary in her own handwriting, the photographs with David, testimonies from witnesses Dorothy had discreetly interviewed before dying. David, now a partner at a prestigious law firm, saw his career collapse overnight. Clients canceled contracts, colleagues distanced themselves, and his firm fired him to preserve the company's reputation. He tried to reconcile with Sarah, begging for forgiveness, but she refused even to speak with him. Rebecca lost her law license. The State Bar Ethics Committee considered that someone capable of setting up such an elaborate fraud against her own sister did not possess the moral character necessary to practice law. Her marriage to David also didn't survive the scandal. He blamed her for ruining both their lives, and she blamed him for never having the courage to confess the truth. But the sweetest revenge for Sarah didn't come through the courts or the media. It came in the form of an unexpected letter. 3 months after the truth had come to light, Sarah received a call from Dr. Harrison Wells, former director of Northwestern Medical School. He had read about the case in the newspapers and decided to take an extraordinary action. "Miss Mitchell," he said on the phone, "I know I can't give back the years you lost, but I'd like to offer something. Our school has created a special program for adults who had their medical careers interrupted by unjust circumstances. If you're still interested, we'd like to honor you with a full scholarship." Sarah was silent for a long moment. At 45 years old, going back to medical school seemed impossible. But then she thought about all the dreams she had buried, all the lives she could have saved, all the passion for medicine that still burned in her heart. "Dr. Wells," she finally said, "I accept." The hospital where Sarah worked as a nurse also took action. When they learned of the injustice she had suffered, they not only apologized publicly, but created a scholarship in her name for young nurses who wanted to pursue medical careers. Rebecca tried to approach Sarah several times. She sent letters, flowers, even showed up at her door begging for forgiveness. But Sarah had learned a valuable lesson. Some betrayals are too deep to be forgiven. The last time Sarah saw Rebecca was in court during the civil lawsuit hearing. Rebecca looked 10 years older, with gray hair and a face marked by the weight of guilt and consequences of her actions. She looked at Sarah across the courtroom with tears in her eyes, but Sarah looked away. The judge ruled in Sarah's favor, granting substantial compensation for moral and financial damages. The money would help pay for her medical studies. But more important than that was the official recognition of her innocence. 2 years later, at age 47, Sarah Mitchell began her first year of medical school. She was the oldest student in the class, but also the most determined. Her classmates respected her not only for her experience as a nurse, but for the story of courage and perseverance that had brought her there. Michael supported her every step of the way. Their marriage, which had been built on fragile foundations, strengthened through this trial. They discovered that true love isn't just about good times, but about staying united when the storm comes. Sarah specialized in emergency medicine, an area where every second counts, where there's no time for lies or games. It was the perfect place for someone who had learned the value of truth the hardest way. Sarah's story teaches us that the truth always finds a way to the light, even when it seems to be buried forever. Sometimes justice is delayed, but when it arrives, it's even sweeter. How many of us carry wounds from past betrayals? How many times do we allow others' lies to define our future? Sarah shows us that it's never too late to start over, never too late to seek the truth, and never too late to realize our dreams. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, what city or country are you watching from? Your presence here means so much to me. And remember, the truth may hurt, but lies hurt much more. Until the next story.